Okay, everybody, welcome, and let's go ahead and get started. The topic of my presentation is, yes, you can build mobile apps. My goal today is I hope that I inspire all of you to build mobile apps, and hopefully I convince you that you can do it. You don't have to be a programmer, and let me try to show you how and why, and open it up for questions towards the end. So, don't be shy. You can type in your questions in the question window, and I'll try to respond to all of them today. So let's talk about the app dilemma, right? We all know that we need an app for this and that and everything else, right? As kind of the Apple commercial goes. As people discovered these great devices that we have in our pockets these days, right? The smartphones, the tablets, apps are really cool. You can use them anytime, anywhere, and our users, just like the consumers they are, when they download apps, they want to use apps in business. Right? There's practically nothing that the apps can't do. It really has become the user interface of choice, the device of choice, because of its usefulness, because of its presence everywhere and anytime, right? So reality of the situation is that the number of apps that companies want to build way, way outpaces the ability of companies to build them. Right? And this is not a knock on IT. I mean, even if you have an absolutely wonderful IT department, there is just no way that they can realistically build all the apps that users want and justifiably need. I'm talking about real business reasons why people want the apps, and many good reasons, but IT simply cannot deliver the apps that people need, right? So what's the problem? What's the dilemma there? First and foremost, mobile app developers are very hard to find. You don't have to take my word for it. Just go on sites like Monster.com, Dice, type in mobile app developers, and you will see literally thousands of unfilled job notices, right? Very, very hard to find. The demand way outpaces the supply. Secondly, it's expensive. You need to have at least 2 developers, one for Android, one for iOS, and they're usually not in one body. It's usually 2 different people, 2 different skill sets. And you're looking at loaded costs, depending on where you are in the country, of $120,000, $130,000 plus, right, if you can find them. So your immediate investment for a company to make, is going to be somewhere in the $250,000 plus vicinity. Not exactly something that many organizations, can afford easily and quickly. And then there is the other reality of, because there are so few mobile app developers, who do they want to work for? They want to work for Google, right? They want to work for Apple. They're not interested in working in ordinary business company. They're not interested in that. And because they have so many choices, they go where they want to work, right? So, even the largest insurance companies and financial companies and consumer goods companies, you name it, are having a really hard time attracting mobile app developers. And the number of apps that companies want to build, literally hundreds of thousands, right? Think about all those enterprise Windows apps that have been built in the 80s, the 90s, right? The web apps that have been built through the 2000s. People want a native iOS and an Apple app to basically replace or front end these existing systems, right? So it's a lot of work to do. I was recently at one of the Gartner conferences, and when when people looked at the number of apps and the amount of work and the amount of effort and dollars that would need to be spent for everybody to go into apps in a big way, it's a staggering figure, right? And then finally, so building native apps is hard programming, right? It's not HTML. It's not a website. You're coding in a fairly low-level language, Objective-C or Java. This is slow, hard. It's not easy to do, right? So people want apps. There's an app for everything, right? The problem is, how do we get there? How do we enable the masses to be able to keep up with the demand for all the apps that the enterprise wants to use? So how to solve it, right? So there are a number of approaches that are people trying out there. One approach is HTML5. If HTML5, new HTML standard, it's mobile friendly, right? You probably heard of something called responsive design, so that it can scale to whether it's the desktop window or a mobile device. It can show itself correctly, scale to it. Is that the answer? For some people it is, right? But it's got its problems. The premise is that you build an app once with HTML5 technology and it will run on any device. That's the promise, right? The reality is that the browsers, which are integrated into HTML5 apps because they need a browser to run, they differ from platform to platform, from vendor to vendor. And so you build an app and it shows one way on one device, another way on another device. It's very difficult to get uniform look and feel for apps that are built with HTML5 technology. Second problem is performance. Depending on the type of an application, if you have something simple, you could be okay. But the minute you try to do a little bit more data intensive, CPU intensive, try to multitask, the performance of HTML5 apps, can quickly become a problem. And the third one is it's HTML, right? So it's a lot more hackable, if there's such a word, much easier to hack than natively created apps, binary code. So for some people, in some areas, for some domains, HTML5 can be the solution that's easier than developing native apps, but not the panacea, right? Not the silver bullet. There are many, many, many types of apps that just cannot be built with HTML5. So what else the company's doing? More training? Sure, you can put your people into Objective-C and Java classes. It takes an average bear about 3 to 6 months with someone who's got prior programming skills to become fairly proficient. And okay, so they get trained up, and then it's going to be another 4 to 6 months before they can be productive in building apps that you need, right? And I'm talking about a lot of apps. I'm talking about one app or two apps. So is that really going to help you with backlog of apps, right? I mean, if your IT department is typical of what we're hearing and seeing out there, you've got so many requests for mobile apps coming at you. The backlog, is not going to go away anytime soon. So what else do companies do? Some do offshoring, okay? They find a developer on Elance or a similar site, and, most of the time, developer is in India or Eastern Europe, and first you're dealing with language issues, right? It's hard enough to explain to a programmer sitting next to you what you want in the app, right? Imagine trying to explain that to someone, that for whom English is a second language or where there are cultural differences, right? I mean, those of you who have worked with offshore developers oftentimes can run into things like, you really want to know the status and you get the yes all the time. Well, it's because it's their culture. They don't say no, right? So There's those issues. And there are time zone differences, right? When, we get up, their workday is already almost over. So you have a very short period of time, if any, to intersect and work with people offshore, right? So that's a big issue. And the third one is loss of control, right? You might have a critical project, critical app, you're trying to get it done, and then what happens? You turn it over to someone, you probably haven't even met them. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't, but you're certainly not in control of the project, right? So if you're not going to offshore, so what else do people do? Well, they do onshore outsourcing, right? But reality is it's too expensive. If you've gone out and priced even a relatively simple app, don't be shocked to get a $50,000, $60,000, $80,000 quote. And sometimes you get quotes that are they go into 6 digits, right? So, onshore development, outsourcing, it's okay maybe if you need one app to kind of get started, but how do you scale something like this, right? When your organization needs to build 30 apps this year, how are you going to do that? It's just simply too expensive. So, obviously we have a lot of smart people in this country and, other places, and, they research this issue, they study it, they try to come up with a solution. So, for example, one of these bright people is a guy by the name of Richard Marshall, Gartner analyst, who wrote a note called Adopt a Bimodal Approach to Mobile App Development Strategy. And basically what Richard is saying is, look, the backlog of apps is huge. We can't build all the apps by coding to the SDKs. There is a need for tools, he calls them codeless app platforms, that can really increase productivity, right? That can enable the masses, not just programmers, not just mobile app developers, but business analysts, project managers, to start building apps. And he makes a very compelling, very clear-cut case for why a bimodal strategy like this is needed. And so if you haven't read the note, I would very much encourage you to get this report. I think it makes a tremendous amount of sense. So what other smart people in the industry? Salesforce.com, right? A company that's doing incredibly well, multi-billion-dollar organization that is growing 30+% per year. They recognize the fact that there's just not enough mobile app developers. And at their Dreamforce conference just a few weeks ago, most of the time they spend talking about their new offering called Lightning, right? That basically is a codeless app platform that enables business people to make apps, right? So they also think that building mobile apps, should not be the domain of mobile developers, that a better solution needs to happen. Another company that's been around for many years, Coney, they started out building apps for customers, 8 years ago, 2006 at least. Maybe longer. It goes way back. Over offering traditional developer tools. And I think they recognize that, that's not the answer either. Their latest offering called the Modeler, which they announced this year, is a codeless app platform, right? So they're recognizing that they really need to broaden the user base, that it can't just be developers building apps. And my company, Snappii, has been offering a codeless app platform for the past 4 years. We've been saying this from the beginning, that we need to enable business people to start making apps. And we'll talk about sort of what's the buzz, right? What's the buzz about codeless platforms? Now that smart people are saying they're very much in vogue, what's all the buzz about? So just explain what a codeless app platform is, right? So the idea is that you go to a browser, cloud-based platform, and in some kind of an editor. The way you build apps is you visually assemble components, you drag and drop them, and then you configure them to get the desired behavior that you want, right? So it's a little bit like, I call this approach canvas painting, right? A good platform, a good codeless platform, should present you with basically an open canvas and let you create exact app that you want. I'm not a proponent of templates, right? There are a lot of cheapo sites on the internet. You can build app very quickly, codeless, $30 a month, build an app. What they offer when you go look is basically you log in and they present you with what kind of an app do you want to build. Okay, you select an app. And then there's maybe a dozen or so templates, and you have to pick the template and enter your data. That's it, right? You get a cookie cutter app that everybody else gets, and they're very limited. You can't do anything outside of the template, right? So, that's okay for small companies wanting to create what I call brochureware apps, simple marketing apps. But when you're talking about building business apps, right, for things like data collection, right, calculations, analysis, reporting, et cetera, that those are not solutions for real app building, right? The kinds of business apps that programmers in companies build, right? That's not the solution. So configuring rather than coding, right? That's the idea. You don't have to be a programmer. It's a lot simpler to simply drag, drop, and then click off checkboxes, type in a little bit of data to get the behavior that you want, so that you can create truly flexible, powerful apps, have total control over the user interface, right, down to the pixel level. Okay, the big deal is, as I already said many times, business people can use it, not just programmers, right? So think about what this means, to your company. You can use your existing staff. We have college interns that are building apps. Literally about a week or two of training, and a kid coming out of school can sit down and build native apps, iOS and Android, generate native apps in a matter of days, right? Kid you not. We have lots and lots of customers and testimonials of people doing exactly that, right? That's how easy it is. You should be able to use your existing staff. The idea is to empower analysts and project managers and anybody that can drag and drop, use them out, you can build an app, right? Platform should be cloud-based, right? You shouldn't have to download anything. If you see download, run. There's no download. There should be no configure. It should be a matter of sign in and start using. Cloud-based, simple, right? A good platform should generate native apps, okay? That's important for security, for performance, for user interface, native look and feel. That's what your users want. You have to remember that, consumer apps have established a pretty high bar. People are downloading apps from App Store, and they're seeing very polished, nice-looking apps. That's what they expect, right? So I'm a big proponent of native apps, and because that's where the bar has been set for consumers who are also our employees. A good platform should automate deployment and updating of these apps, right? Making a change on the app should also be visual and codeless. Click, 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 app is updated, push one button, and it goes out to thousands of devices, right? That's what it should work like. It's very important for the codeless platform to be feature-rich, right? Very important, because yeah, visual is great, but if the components from which you're building your app is limited, you're not going to be able to build many different kinds of apps, right? So it's really important to pick something that's mature, that's established, that can let you, do things very quickly and easily, right? A form, report, show data as a gallery, put a map, get directions. All of these things should be high-level components which you can, in a matter of seconds, just click off the behavior that you want, configure them, and start using them, right? So very important to have feature-rich capabilities. And just as importantly, the apps that you're building are not standalone apps, right? Ultimately, it's all about data. And they need to be able to connect to or create any data source, whether you're storing data on the device, in a cloud database, on cloud drives, or you're getting the data or sending the data to corporate systems, to backend systems, ERP and CRM systems. The connectivity capability has to be built into the platform. You shouldn't have to code to get data connectivity into your apps, right? So the advantages, right? So what's all the buzz about? What are the advantages of the codeless platforms? The one, and probably the most important one, is speed. Speed, speed, speed. I just returned from a conference called Enterprise Mobility Exchange in Las Vegas. And, there were about 120 executives in charge of mobility projects from many leading companies. And if there was one theme that was kind of underlined, emphasized, was the need to do apps quickly, right? And so a codeless app platform should turn months of development into days, right? So if it takes your programmer 3 months to build an app, you should be able to build an app in 3 days. Massive, massive increase in speed. Second one, which is just as important, the reality is it's very difficult to build an app to know what your users want ahead of time. It's a different form factor, screen size. We think we know what users want. The reality is, until you put an app into people's hands, you really don't know what they want. You really don't know how they're going to react, right? So a codeless app platform will give you the advantage of prototyping rapidly. Create the first version. What do you guys think? Get feedback. Make a change. Get it out there again. Get more feedback. And it's absolutely essential to go through lots and lots of iterations, lots and lots of iterations. It's the iterations that are going to enable you to really get it right with your users, right? And, in my humble opinion, there's no point of building an app if you're not going to gain user acceptance, right? It's all about getting people excited, getting the wow, seeing them use the app. So ability to prototype rapidly will give you the ability to deliver the app that your users actually want to use. Get it out there to lots of people, right? It doesn't matter. Business analysts, project managers, digital marketers. I mean, we have lots of examples of people building mobile apps, right, that have never programmed before. It needs to be widely spread and adopted, because otherwise there's no way we're going to build all the apps that our organizations want. It should be easy to do maintenance and updating of these apps, right? A codeless app platform allows you to focus on a business problem. That's where you want to spend your time, getting it right, right? Not in the trenches of making technology work, down in the basement, getting stuck in technical details. A good platform should isolate you from having to deal with the details and allow you to work at a business level, right? And you can use this type of quick, agile app development approach in a lot of different areas. For example, I mentioned Richard Marshall from Gartner. One of the ones that he proposes is it's great for new and unproven projects, where requirements are not known, or where you may want to make changes. Say you're doing a product launch. Your company is launching a product. You don't know if the product is going to succeed. You are limited by time frame, right? Marketing department probably got the project 3 weeks before the launch. And yes, we need an app, and it needs to do A, B, and C, right? In these kinds of scenarios, agile platforms, codeless platforms is just the way to go, because you can build something quickly, easily. You can adopt it. It's okay if you don't know what the requirements are, because as it evolves, you'll get the requirements. You'll get the feedback from the users. So these things are absolutely perfect for building apps like that. And at the end of the day, you will save massive amount of money, because you're enabling your existing staff to build apps. You are doing it in days, not months, right? Just a savings in time, enabling any personnel to develop apps, getting the apps that you need into customers' hands. Hopefully you're building apps that are making a difference in your business, right? That's the whole point. You're creating another channel of distribution. You're getting more customers to interact with your company. At the end of the day, apps will give your organization's ability to make a lot more money, right? And so to make money and save money, that's the idea. We should not be spending, $80,000 per app. It's just, it's way out. It's way too ridiculous. Let's enable the people in the organizations to build apps and do it quickly, easily, and far less expensive. So hopefully I've inspired you a little bit today. I've given you some information about how to build apps. We would like to invite all of you to a demo. We're going to do individual demo for you. Just raise your hand. And the way we like to do demo is to, sort of put our mouth where, our money is, so to speak, right? It's to build an app in front of you on this codeless platform, on our Snappii codeless platform. So tell us what you need. You send us your requirements ahead of time, and we're going to do what we call live build. As we're building it in the browser, and the minute we hit save, you will start seeing the app immediately work on your mobile device, right? And to demonstrate the point of how quickly and easily these apps can be built. So I hope you take us up on it. Just email us at sales@snappii.com or give us a call. Let us know your requirements, and we'll show you this capability in action. The other thing I would encourage you to do is to take a look at Google or Apple app stores. Just type in Snappii, and you'll see that using our own platform, as I like to say, we eat our own dog food. We have built over 80 business apps that we sell through these Google and Apple app stores. That's a really good example of the power of the platform, and will give you a good indication of the kinds of apps that you can build. I mean, we have there anything from invoice apps, bill apps, to all kinds of inspection apps in variety of industries, right? From oil and gas to you name it. So take a look at some of these apps. If you like these apps, we can certainly customize them for your organization and make it easy for you, so you're not starting from scratch, and build the exact app that you want, right? the platform is our secret sauce. That's why we've been able to create 80 plus business apps, which is, by the way, more than anybody else that when it comes to business apps in the App Store. And that's really, like I said, compliments of our platform. So lots of options. Hopefully I've given you guys some information. I'm going to stick around and answer the questions, any questions that you have. Okay, somebody had trouble viewing. If you contact us, we'll make sure that you get the presentation and we'll get you going. Okay, a question. I'd like to develop an app for my organization I'm working with. I would like to make a directory which contains photo, addresses, phone numbers, emails, etc. Yep, pretty straightforward. We have lots of examples of these kinds of apps. Something like this can be done. So, I invite you to demo and send us a little bit of information, and we'll build this app right in front of you. Okay, another question is, is this real native apps? Yes, it is absolutely real native apps. So the way the platform works is when you draw pictures and configure, the platform generates Objective-C code for iOS and Java code for Android platform. The code then gets compiled with SDKs, with native SDKs that Apple and Google respectively provide, and that's the app you get. So there is absolutely no difference with the app that we generate versus an app that's written by a programmer to using these SDKs. There are no other layers of software in between. That's why they're high-performance apps that are, that work beautifully. Okay, looking at other questions. Okay, another question is in terms of time to learn. So, like I said in my presentation, it takes about a week to 2 weeks. We do training. We certainly, the other things that we've done with many clients is we take your first app or two and we build them with you, right? So it's sort of like very pragmatic training. We build it, you see how we build it, and then you can go off on your own and build other apps and maintain the apps that we build. So, if you're going to be building lots of apps, I think the best option is for us to give you training, build your first app, and get you going. If you just need a single app, we offer professional services. So just let us know what you need, and we can build an app for you. Right. So the question about cost. Yeah, it really depends on the app, right? But in any case, it's going to be significantly less expensive than onshoring it because of the productivity that the platform provides. It's going to be quicker, and ultimately, it's really hard to say precisely for any given app. It starts at $3,000 and goes up depending on complexity, right? So, if you send in your requirements, we're going to be able to give you a more precise answer. Questions about who are some of our more well-known customers. So we have many customers that have used the platform over the 4 years that we have offered it, from some very recognizable names to small organizations you never heard of. So, for example, give you an example of a Fortune 1000 customer, Hister and Yale. They're worldwide leader in forklifts. They're a big customer of ours. Their marketing department, digital marketing departments, built an app that's a sales, the first app that they built. There are many apps at this point. The first one they built is a sales catalog for their sales reps and dealers to help them with product selection. They have a very broad selection of products, so they needed to equip everyone out there in the field with information to help with product selection. Their marketing department built this app in a couple of weeks. Today, this app has been in production, I think, for now over 2.5 years. You have several thousand customers that are using this app every day. And it's probably a good example as I can come up with, and there are many others. Let us know also what industry you're in so that we can show you more specific customer examples and share with you what others in your industry are doing to build apps. Okay, looking at some more questions. Okay. Another question is, can we build apps that utilize maps to be able to provide directions? Yes, it's a fairly straightforward app. You can build app, for example, to provide directions to your locations, capture existing location. If you need to capture it when you are submitting data in the form, you could certainly do that. So, let us know more specifically what your use case is. But, in general, any kind of app where you're collecting the data is really straightforward to do on the platform. There's another question about the apps that we generate, can they work when there is no internet connection? The answer is yes. Part of the platform capability is to basically cache the data so that you can build apps that allow users to work with these apps, whether you're online or offline. If the user is filling out a form, the form will be temporarily saved on a device, and then when the connection is reestablished, the data will be sent to wherever it needs to go. Okay, looking at some more questions here. Okay, another question, sort of, what's the limitation of the platform? So surely you can't build any kind of a, right, so you cannot use the platform to build games, right? We don't do that. It's other types of limitations are, that we build apps basically for handling data, right? So if it's a business app and you're dealing with data, whether it's displaying it, collecting it, analyzing it, right, calculating it, showing, collecting, etc., utilizing photo capability, say you want to take a picture and draw on it, put some notes on it, capture the location of where you are, by utilizing maps, utilizing PDFs if you have existing forms that you want to turn into a mobile app, Excel spreadsheets with data that you want to turn into app. Basically, anything that has to do with data is very well within the capability of the platform, right? Things that we can't do today, things like games or controlling specific devices, through things like Bluetooth, or some kind of instrumentation, things that are very sort of specific like that. That's right. We can't build those apps. But anything that has to do with business and data is within our capabilities. Okay, we've got some more questions. Right, so just got kind of a loaded question here, trying to paraphrase it. So, it basically, if I start building an app, and how do I know what the, how do I read this? If I get essentially stuck, what happens? So, you would contact us. We would determine basically what we can do to help you. And it can be anything from getting you training so you can finish your app to just building the app for you. So we offer a number of solutions, right? So that the idea is, build as much as you want, and then we can determine how we can help you get it done. The idea is we want to make sure that everyone has an absolutely wow app, right? That's going to be accepted for you. So we do things like we do app reviews before you submit to app stores. We can look through it. Having done so many thousands of apps, we have a lot of experience about knowing what Apple expects, for example, when they do a review, so that we can, help you get through the approval process, and just general recommendations, right? So I would very much encourage you guys to, let us know what you want, and we can discuss and go from there. Okay, so question about, complexity of an app and the timing. So a simple app is a matter of days. A more complex app, a week or two. If you have to connect to, if we have to connect to back-end systems, gets a little bit more involved, but not terribly more. I mean, basically, it's an XML document that needs to be created that describes the Snappii platform how to talk with your back-end systems. If it's a database connection, Oracle, SQL, etc., we handle that through what's called ODBC connector, right? So that's just a matter of selecting that type of a connector, and we'll be talking to that data. So it really depends on the where the data is coming from, but in any case, it's not writing code. Another question related to is the type of what type of connections do you support? So we support REST protocol, REST, which is the most popular protocol today for communicating with other programs. We return data. We talk REST and get the data returned in JSON. We've have some requests for SOAP as well, so that's just a slightly older variant, but certainly doable. And then when we talk to databases, specifically through ODBC connections. Yeah, so a related follow-on question to that is, so when we connect to a back-end system, the connection actually happens from our cloud server side, right? So the flow of data is app talks to our cloud server, which does a lot of things for the app to make the app powerful, and so on, offloads a lot of processing. And then the cloud server that establishes a RESTful connection with a backend system, right, or an ODBC connection. Right, related question to that is, so can you fill in a map with data coming from a back-end systems? The answer is yes, absolutely. So in Snappii, we have this concept of a data source. A data source can be anything. It can be data coming from your local device in your hand. It could be data coming from and going to a cloud database. We use Microsoft SQL Server to power our databases. When you upload a spreadsheet into Snappii, we basically create a database, create the schema, and load the data, and it's in the SQL Server database on the back end. The data could be coming from ERP, CRM system, could be coming from database system through ODBC. It doesn't matter, right? The app sees it as a data source. So that's why it's very easy to build your app, maybe use a local database initially to kind of, while you're developing it, prototyping it. Then it's very easy to switch the app to start using a backend server. So what I usually tell people is don't worry about the back-end connections. Get the app right, get the user interface working so the users like your app. Connecting to another data source is pretty straightforward. It's not that difficult. Okay, I will, take one or two more questions. If you can go ahead and type them in, and we'll call it a day, and hopefully talk to you guys soon. Okay, one question here, and we'll make this a final question. So how do you display the data? We can display the data multiple ways. The simplest is in a list, right? You're all accustomed to mobile apps that show data as a list that you can scroll up and down and then click on any entry in the list and get the detailed view. We can display data as a gallery, right? So say you're building a product catalog, and what you really want to do is, show it in terms of pictures, right? So we can display a gallery, display data as a gallery that you can interact with. Say you want to change the color, or you want to change dimensions, specify quantity, etc., etc. You can, interact with the app visually as a gallery, or we can display the data on a map, right? So, say you're building a Salesforce enablement app. You have field sales reps, and they need to see, where all the clients are that are near me. We can basically feed the list of clients, and it can be coming, again, doesn't matter what the data source is, whether it's coming from your corporate system, or it's a local list, or it's loaded from a spreadsheet. It doesn't matter. Build an app, shows a map, shows where all the customers are near me, gives me the ability to contact any of them, email them, schedule an appointment, tells me who is nearby, right? So that's an example of how you can build apps that are utilizing maps to show the data. Okay, so I think that's great. I've enjoyed giving this presentation. Hopefully you do too. And please contact us and let's discuss the app you need and get you going. So I thank you for your time, and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.